It's the spring of 1995 in southern Taiwan. A woman in her 30s stands at her kitchen counter and pours herself a tall glass of something bright, almost neon green. She drinks it down the way the ads told her to, every morning, on an empty stomach. To melt the weight away without lifting a finger. It tastes fresh, grassy, completely harmless. 6 weeks later, she can't climb a single flight of stairs without stopping to gasp for air. Deep inside her chest, her lungs are quietly turning to scar tissue, and not one doctor in the country yet knows why. Here's what makes it so frightening. The thing in that glass wasn't some exotic poison, or a chemical, or a drug. It was a leafy green vegetable, one that people across Asia have eaten safely for thousands of years. One so loaded with nutrition, it earned the nickname the multivitamin plant. So how does a vegetable your great-grandmother would have recognized put dozens of healthy young women in the hospital, fighting for every breath, some of them eventually needing entirely new lungs? The answer quietly demolishes almost everything you've been told about the word natural. Welcome to Root Vault. If you'd rather understand the plants we've forgotten than repeat the mistakes made with them, take a second to subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of story that gets buried. The plant is called Katuk. Botanists know it as Sauropus androgynus. Depending on where in the world you're standing, you might call it sweetleaf, star gooseberry, Tecurmanis, or, in China, Tianluxiang. Its Latin name literally means something like lizard foot. Nobody's entirely sure why. It's a modest shrub, waist to shoulder high, with small, dark green oval leaves. And across Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and southern China, there is nothing exotic about it at all. It's dinner. People stir-fry it with egg and dried anchovies, drop it into soups with pork or crab, and cook the tender young shoots like a kind of tropical asparagus. The leaves taste faintly of fresh sweet peas, with something almost peanut buttery hiding underneath. In Indonesia and Malaysia, nursing mothers have eaten it for generations because it's long been believed to help their milk come in. It's so rich in vitamins that farmers there simply call it the multigreen. For most of human history, this was one of the safest, most generous vegetables in the entire tropics, which is what makes what happened next so hard to believe. And here's where the numbers start sounding almost too good to be true. Gram for gram, Katuk humiliates the greens you already know. A half cup of fresh Katuk leaves carries roughly 10 times the protein of the same amount of spinach. It's flooded with vitamin C. Some measurements run past 200 milligrams in a 100-gram serving, several times what you would get from an orange, along with vitamin A, calcium, and iron. And that headline claim more protein than an egg. Here's the honest version. Fresh off the branch, the leaf is around 6% protein. But dry it out the way you would measure any concentrated food, and by weight, Katuk leaf climbs north of 20% protein, higher than a boiled egg from a leaf. That right there is the reputation that would eventually get it into terrible trouble. Because when a food starts sounding like a miracle, sooner or later, somebody tries to sell it as one. Now here's the part that turned a humble vegetable into a national tragedy. In late 1994, Katuk arrived in Taiwan, but not as a vegetable. It arrived as a cure. It was marketed as a slimming agent. A natural, effortless, no-exercise way to lose weight fast. And the way people were told to take it made all the difference in the world. Not cooked, not stirred into a meal the way it had been eaten for 1,000 years. Raw, blended into juice, usually mixed with guava or pineapple to soften that grassy edge, and drunk every single day, sometimes several times a day. It caught fire, mostly among young and middle-aged women chasing the promise on the label. And this is the thing to hold on to. They weren't eating Katuk the way humanity always had. They were doing something brand new to it, concentrating it, drinking it raw in enormous daily amounts. And the plant did not forgive it. By the spring and summer of 1995, they began showing up at hospitals across southern Taiwan. First a trickle, then a flood. Young, healthy women, none of them smokers. all describing the exact same thing: a dry cough that simply would not quit, and a shortness of breath that only got worse no matter what they did. When they finally tested the women's lungs, the numbers stopped them cold. Airflow crushed down to around a quarter of what a healthy person's should be. And here was the cruelest detail of all: the inhalers did nothing. Nothing opened back up. This wasn't asthma, this wasn't an allergy, this was something that simply didn't reverse. The illness had a name, and it's a brutal one: bronchiolitis obliterans. The smallest airways deep in your lungs, the tiny branching passages where the actual work of breathing happens, become inflamed, and then they scar shut. Obliterated. And scar tissue does not heal back into working lung. It's gone. The Taiwanese doctors published their findings in The Lancet, one of the most respected medical journals on Earth, in 1996. A case control study the following year in the American Journal of Epidemiology laid the pattern out in black and white. Of 54 patients suffering from this lung disease, every single one, a full 100%, had been consuming Katuk, compared with fewer than 1 in 10 of the healthy neighbours they were measured against. At that point, this was not a coincidence anymore, it was a cause. And it only got darker the closer they looked. A follow-up study found a clear dose-response relationship, meaning the more raw Katuk a person had put away, the worse and the more permanent the damage to their lungs. Several of the women died. Others were harmed so severely that the only option left on the table was a lung transplant. A handful of them, women who had been drinking 100 to 200 grams of the raw extract every single day, for weeks on end, all in pursuit of a smaller dress size, ended up needing brand new lungs before they even reached middle age. Sit with that trade for a moment. It started with a health drink. It ended in an operating room. So what actually did this? The leading suspect is a compound in the leaf called papaverine, the same family of alkaloid used in certain medications to relax blood vessels, and raw Katuk turns out to be surprisingly loaded with it. The theory goes that in massive daily doses, it damaged the delicate vessels and airways of the lung. But here's the detail that still unsettles researchers to this day. When they fed papaverine and Katuk extract to laboratory rats, the rats didn't develop the disease. Nobody has ever been able to fully reproduce it in an animal, which means the honest answer, even now, decades later, is that we don't completely understand why it struck these particular women so viciously. Some scientists suspect the victims' own immune systems, and possibly their genetics, helped decide just how badly each of them would be hurt. The plant was the trigger, but the gun, it seems, was partly built inside the body. Taiwan's response was blunt. The plant was banned for human consumption, and you would think that would be the end of the whole grim story. But 10 years later, in 2005, the exact same nightmare resurfaced, this time in Japan. Around 9 more cases, another death, another lung transplant. Same plant, same raw slimming trend, same devastating result. And now here's the irony that should stay with you long after this video ends. While all of this was unfolding, the hospitals, the transplants, the bans, millions of people across the rest of Southeast Asia kept right on eating Katuk. Stir-fried, in soup, at dinner, every day. And they were completely, entirely fine. The vegetable on the plate never hurt a soul. Only the medicine in the glass did. And that is what this story is really about. It is not the tale of a secretly evil plant. Katuk did not change on the journey from the dinner tables of Malaysia to the juice bars of Taiwan. What changed was everything around it. The form, the dose, the promise. Take a food that is perfectly safe when it's cooked and eaten in normal amounts, tear it out of the meal it belongs in, concentrate it raw and pour it down your throat every single day as a miracle cure, and you can turn very nearly anything into a hazard. Natural was never the same thing as safe. A plant is a living chemistry set, and the dose has always been what decides whether a thing feeds you or harms you. These women were not stupid and they were not careless. They simply trusted a word, natural, that was never a promise in the first place. So here is the part actually worth carrying out of all this. Katuk is, still, a genuinely excellent vegetable. Where it's legal and available, it's eaten right across the tropics the same sane way it's been eaten forever. The leaves cooked, never raw, in the ordinary amounts you'd eat any green, as part of a meal rather than instead of one. Stir-fried in a little oil with garlic, or simmered into a soup, that is the version with the 1,000-year safety record behind it. What the Taiwan tragedy warns against is specific, and it reaches far beyond one shrub. Don't juice raw leaves by the glassful. Don't megadose any green just because a label stamped the word superfood on it. And be deeply, deeply suspicious of any plant sold to you as an effortless weight loss cure you're supposed to pound every single day. The oldest rule there is, eat a little of a lot of different things, and cook the things that are meant to be cooked, beats every miracle diet ever printed. And if you happen to live somewhere Katuk is still restricted, understand that the restriction is there for a real, documented reason. Respect it. So go back one last time to that woman at the kitchen counter in the spring of 1995, lifting that bright green glass to her lips, fully believing she was doing something good for her body. She wasn't drinking a poison. She was drinking a vegetable, one of the finest on the entire planet, in the one form and at the one dose that could destroy her. The tragedy was never the plant, it was the promise printed on the label. If this changed the way you hear the word superfood, subscribe because the vault is full of plants exactly like this one. Plants we've loved, feared, and misunderstood in equal measure. And the next one we're about to open, it was once worth more than gold.